The air inside the studio was electric. The cameras were rolling, the audience was locked in, and the view was broadcasting live across the country. But in an instant, everything changed. Gasps exploded across the room. You could literally hear someone in the front row whisper, "Did he just say that?" And then, a beat of stunned silence, like the whole world held its breath. Moments earlier, tech billionaire Elon Musk had turned to Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, his voice calm but sharp, and delivered the line no one expected. "If you're not here to have a serious discussion, maybe you should leave." The camera didn't cut away fast enough. It captured Jasmine's reaction, eyes narrowed, jaw clenched. Then, almost in slow motion, she stood up from her chair, gave Musk one final stare, and walked off set without a word. Boom. Chaos. A producer yelled, "Cut to commercial," and the screen quickly faded to black, the theme music playing awkwardly as everyone scrambled behind the scenes. But for the millions watching at home, and the thousands sitting in that studio, the damage was already done. No one knew what was happening, but they knew one thing. They had just witnessed a live television moment that would go viral in minutes. Let's rewind for a second. This episode of The View had been hyped for days. The show was bringing on Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla, SpaceX, and the man now running X, formerly Twitter, for a raw, uncensored conversation about technology, society, and the future of free speech. ABC executives were counting on big ratings, and they weren't wrong. But the real wild card wasn't Musk. It was Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, the fiery, no-nonsense lawmaker from Texas, who was invited to co-host for the day. Crockett, known for her bold personality and razor-sharp commentary, was a fresh addition to the table. The producers thought it would spark good conversation. They had no idea what they were setting in motion. From the opening minutes, the energy was tense. Musk was soft-spoken, as usual, explaining his latest AI ventures and vision for a free speech utopia on X. But Crockett wasn't there to nod and smile. She came prepared, with facts, with questions, with the kind of energy that says, "You're not going to dodge accountability on my watch." And Elon noticed. You could see the look in his eyes shift. What started as a polite back and forth slowly morphed into something much more confrontational. The kind of thing that couldn't be scripted and couldn't be stopped. At one point, Crockett leaned forward, challenging Musk on the spread of misinformation on his platform. "So you say you're defending free speech, but who's defending the truth?" Musk replied with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "Truth is subjective, Congresswoman. People have to decide for themselves." She didn't flinch. That's a convenient answer when lies go viral faster than facts, especially when you're making money off the chaos. That line hit like a punch. The audience murmured. The co-hosts looked uneasy. And Musk, he leaned back, paused, then delivered the now infamous line. "If you're not here to have a serious discussion, maybe you should leave." And that was it. Crockett stared at him, as if confirming she had heard right. Then she stood up, adjusted her mic, and calmly walked off the set. No shouting, no dramatic gestures, just a powerful, deliberate exit. The audience was stunned. Some clapped, unsure if this was part of the show. Others looked horrified. One man in the second row literally stood up and whispered, "Is this real?" Yes, it was very real. As the screen cut to commercial, the View's control room descended into controlled panic. Producers scrambled to regroup. Stage managers huddled off camera, and the remaining co-hosts sat in stunned silence, unsure how to move forward. Meanwhile, the internet lit up like a Christmas tree. Clips of the moment started flooding social media before the show even returned from break. On Twitter, or X, ironically, the hashtags #Crockett vs. Musk, #TheViewExplosion, and #ElonGetsChecked were already trending. Users were divided. Some praised Crockett for holding Musk accountable. Others accused her of being too combative. But one thing was clear. Everyone was talking about it. Back in the studio, even the crew looked shaken. A makeup artist could be seen pacing behind the curtain. A stagehand muttered, "This is going to be all over TMZ in 10 minutes. They were wrong. It only took 5. So what made this moment so explosive? It wasn't just the drama. It was the symbolism. A black congresswoman standing her ground against one of the richest, most powerful men on the planet, and refusing to be silenced. She didn't scream. She didn't storm off. She made a point by walking away with dignity while the world watched. And Musk, he remained seated, still expressionless, unbothered, or at least pretending to be. But behind that calm exterior, something had shifted. This was supposed to be a PR win, a showcase of brilliance, vision, and bold ideas. Instead, it became a defining moment in the culture war over power, privilege, and truth. The kind of moment that gets clipped, shared, debated, and remembered. The kind of moment that makes people say, "Wait, what just happened?" When it was announced that Elon Musk would be appearing live on The View, it immediately set social media ablaze. The billionaire CEO of Tesla, SpaceX, and X, formerly Twitter, isn't exactly known for frequent daytime talk show appearances. He usually makes headlines on tech panels, global summits, or, more often than not, in 280-character bursts online. So why The View? And why now? According to insiders at ABC, the decision was part of a calculated effort by the network to boost ratings and bring in a younger, more engaged audience. The producers knew Musk's name guaranteed attention. Love him or hate him, everyone has an opinion. Pair that with his recent moves in AI, controversial takes on free speech, and his increasingly polarizing presence online, and the timing couldn't have been more perfect. It was pitched as a bold conversation about innovation and power. One staffer revealed anonymously, they wanted sparks. What they got was a wildfire. The original plan was simple. Invite Elon Musk on to talk about his vision for the future, AI breakthroughs, space travel, Neuralink, even how he's reshaping public discourse through his social media platform. Give the viewers a mix of inspiration and controversy. Let him talk tech, defend his choices, maybe even soften his image a bit in front of a live daytime audience. But this wasn't going to be a one-sided PR showcase. Enter Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. She had been invited as a special guest co-host for the day, part of The View's ongoing effort to bring in voices from across politics and media. But Crockett wasn't just any guest. She's a rising Democratic firebrand from Texas, bold, unafraid, and unfiltered. Known for her viral moments during House hearings, her sharp legal mind, and her ability to stand toe-to-toe with anyone, Crockett has made headlines for calling out racism, misinformation, and corporate hypocrisy, sometimes all in the same sentence. ABC thought placing her across the table from Musk would make for good television. What they got was TV history. Behind the scenes, producers believed the dynamic between Musk and Crockett would be passionate but professional. After all, The View had hosted controversial guests before. Politicians, CEOs, even celebrities with wild opinions. What could go wrong? The answer, everything. From the moment the lights went up and the theme music faded, the energy was tense. The usual banter between the hosts felt a little more strained. Elon, seated at the far end of the table, had his trademark cool, a quiet, almost robotic calm. Crockett, seated just a few feet away, had that unmistakable fire in her eyes. The segment began with Whoopi Goldberg asking Musk about his plans for AI and how Neuralink might help humans keep up with the technology he's developing. Musk gave a surprisingly digestible response, noting the dangers of unchecked artificial intelligence and the importance of merging with the machine. The audience was impressed. For a moment, it looked like things were going smoothly. Then came the pivot. Joy Behar asked a question about free speech on X, pointing out the platform's recent criticism over hate speech and disinformation. Musk replied by defending his stance, saying he believed people should be free to say what they want, even if others don't like it. That was the moment Crockett decided to speak. But what happens when that freedom turns into fuel for violence? When the lies on your platform lead to real-world harm? Her tone wasn't aggressive. It was firm, direct, and backed by facts. But the room shifted. You could feel the tension grow, like thunderclouds forming in real time. Musk blinked. The smile faded. "We're not a publisher," he said. "We don't control speech. We allow people to speak freely. That's the point." Crockett didn't flinch. "But you do amplify certain voices. Algorithms promote certain messages over others. So it's not a free town square. It's a platform with power. And when power goes unchecked, people get hurt. Even the audience seemed torn. Some clapped. Some looked uncomfortable. The other co-hosts gave each other uneasy glances. It was no longer a feel-good tech interview. It had turned into a battle of ideals, and neither side was backing down. Behind the scenes, the control room was already sweating. One producer whispered into a headset, "Do we pull to commercial if it escalates?" Another said, "No, let it ride. This is gold." But what no one expected, not the hosts, not the staff, and not the millions watching, was that this ideological clash would soon turn personal. When Crockett brought up racial disparities in AI datasets and hiring practices at Musk's companies, the CEO's patience visibly wore thin. He accused her of trying to politicize science and turn a serious conversation into a political hit job. Then came the infamous line, "If you're not here to have a serious discussion, maybe you should leave." The studio went still. Crockett looked shocked, not offended but appalled. She stood, calm and composed, and walked off stage without a word. In that moment, The View stopped being just a talk show. It became the center of a cultural explosion. So why was Elon Musk even there? He was there to talk tech. He was there to reshape his image. But what happened instead was a clash of two powerful figures, one representing innovation, the other representing accountability, and a conversation that spiraled into something no one could predict. ABC had hoped for strong ratings. What they got was a national conversation, and the kind of TV moment that turns into headlines, think pieces, and viral debates for days to come. From the instant the camera started rolling, you could feel it, a crackle in the air. Something was off. The usual upbeat energy on The View was replaced with a palpable tension that practically vibrated across the studio. At first, things appeared calm. Elon Musk, dressed in a black suit with his signature unbothered expression, began the segment with poise. He spoke about the progress of SpaceX, detailing their most recent successful rocket launch, and the long-term dream of colonizing Mars. He segued smoothly into Neuralink, explaining how the brainchip startup could eventually cure neurological disorders and allow humans to interface directly with AI. The audience listened politely. Some even nodded, visibly impressed by the ambitious vision. But behind the table, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett wasn't smiling. She wasn't there for a science fair presentation. And the moment the conversation pivoted to Musk's controversial leadership of X, formerly Twitter, everything changed. Joy Behar posed a transition question, referencing the widespread criticism Musk had received since purchasing Twitter and rebranding it into X. "Elon, you've often said that X is the modern town square. But with so much misinformation and hate speech, how do you protect public trust?" Musk took a measured breath and responded with a classic PR line. "I believe in giving people back their voice. The media doesn't have a monopoly on truth. Free speech includes speech you might not like." That was Crockett's opening, and she took it without hesitation. She leaned forward, her voice calm but sharp. "Mr. Musk, while you claim to protect free speech, your platform has become a breeding ground for misinformation and hate speech. How do you reconcile that?" The room stiffened. Musk raised an eyebrow. He didn't speak immediately. Instead, he let a few seconds pass, seconds that felt like hours in a live broadcast. Finally, he replied, his voice just a little colder. "That's a biased narrative, Congresswoman. Twitter, or X, allows open dialogue. People are responsible for their own words. Not me." The audience murmured. You could tell some viewers were on Musk's side, nodding along. But others leaned in, eyes on Crockett, waiting to see if she'd fold. Spoiler alert, she didn't. She kept her gaze locked on Musk. It's not about free speech. It's about accountability. You own the platform. And when violent conspiracy theories spread unchecked, when hate groups organize and harass vulnerable communities, that's not just people saying things. That's a system that profits from chaos, and you're running from it. The temperature in the studio dropped. Even the co-hosts looked taken aback. Ana Navarro visibly shifted in her seat. Sunny Hostin scribbled something quickly on her notepad, perhaps preparing a follow-up. Whoopi Goldberg watched quietly, gauging the energy like a seasoned veteran. Musk smiled, But it wasn't a warm smile. It was tight, strategic. Respectfully, Congresswoman, you're confusing freedom with control. The platform is neutral. We don't curate truth. We let people decide what to believe. Crockett's expression hardened. She wasn't here to debate definitions. She was here to call out hypocrisy. And she wasn't going to let him reframe the issue. So you're telling me that if someone spreads lies about vaccines, or promotes white supremacist ideology, or threatens violence, that's just part of the conversation? That's just freedom. The crowd reacted with a loud murmur, some clapping, some gasping. The tension had fully broken into confrontation. It wasn't just a difference of opinion. It was two worldviews colliding. Musk looked down at the table for a moment. Then he responded, still calm. Look, no system is perfect. But censorship is a far greater threat to society than offensive opinions. Once you start deciding what people can't say, you've already lost. That line would go on to be repeated and debated for days online. But Crockett had heard enough. This isn't about opinions, Mr. Musk. It's about consequences. Your platform isn't a passive chalkboard. It has algorithms. It has amplification tools. It has power. And when you let harmful lies spread, and then hide behind free speech, you're not defending democracy. You're weakening it. By now, the audience was fully engaged. Some clapped enthusiastically. Others looked visibly uncomfortable. A few attendees exchanged wide-eyed glances, as if unsure whether to applaud or hold their breath. Elon's face didn't change, but he was leaning forward now, elbows on the table. The cool detachment he had at the start was slipping, replaced with a steely focus. He was done playing nice. He opened his mouth to reply, but before he could, Crockett added one final jab. It's easy to talk about freedom when you're a billionaire who doesn't face the consequences of online harassment. But for the everyday people harmed by what happens on X, the ones who can't afford bodyguards or legal teams, freedom without responsibility is just a license to hurt. Boom. Even the camera seemed to hesitate before switching angles. Whoopi finally interjected, trying to steer things back on track. Okay. Let's take a breath, she said, half laughing, half worried. We're here to have a conversation, not a courtroom drama. But by then, it was too late. The room had already split. Viewers watching from home flooded social media with reactions. Some hailed Crockett as a truth-teller who dared to speak up against unchecked power. Others accused her of ambushing a guest and turning the view into a political battlefield. Either way, the moment had landed, and neither Musk nor Crockett would walk away from it the same. The air in the studio was already crackling with tension. Words had been exchanged. Shots had been fired, verbally at least. But up until now, it was still within the boundaries of intense TV. That was about to change. It happened so quickly. Viewers almost didn't register it at first. One moment, Elon Musk was calmly defending his company's role in shaping the future. The next, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett cut in, her voice louder, more urgent than before. And that's when it happened, the moment that set it all off. The moment that would be replayed millions of times across social media in every format imaginable. Slow-mo clips, meme edits, dramatic reenactments, even commentary breakdowns from both political sides. It started with a question Musk hadn't fully answered, at least not to Crockett's satisfaction. They were discussing AI development, with Musk touting how his companies were leading the charge in making artificial intelligence safer and more accessible. He emphasized ethics and progress, saying things like, "We're designing AI to serve humanity, not replace it. That's the priority." Crockett had been quiet for a few beats, but then she leaned in, voice cutting through the air like a blade. "Serve which humanity, Mr. Musk? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks pretty one-sided." The audience collectively stiffened. You could hear someone in the back row whisper, "Oh, you talk about changing the future," she continued. "But who gets to be a part of that future? Where are the black engineers? Where are the women of color in leadership? Where's the equity in all this innovation?" Musk's jaw tightened. His eyes didn't blink. He stared at her, cold and calculated. It wasn't just a disagreement anymore. This had struck a nerve. He opened his mouth to respond, but Crockett wasn't done. You build rocket ships to Mars and plug computers into people's brains, but you haven't figured out how to create a hiring process that doesn't overlook qualified black and brown talent. Boom. That's when the rubber band snapped. Elon Musk interrupted, his voice sharper than it had been all day. "If you're more interested in creating drama than having an adult conversation," he said, slowly and clearly, "you can leave." The studio fell dead silent. No laughter, no gasps, just pure, stunned silence. Even the camera crew paused. You could almost hear the whir of the lenses focusing in, capturing every inch of Crockett's reaction. She blinked in disbelief, her mouth slightly open. Then came the response, calm, pointed, and dripping with controlled outrage. "Excuse me." Musk didn't flinch. He leaned forward, eyes locked on hers. "You heard me. If you're here to score political points, not engage in real dialogue, then leave." Those weren't just fighting words. They were the kind of words that shift the atmosphere in a room. Suddenly, everything changed. The audience was no longer watching a debate. They were watching a standoff. Crockett didn't shout. She didn't flail or stumble. Instead, she slowly placed her hand on the table and stood. "So that's what happens when a black woman asks tough questions," she said, her voice steady. "You kick her off your stage?" A few people clapped. Others gasped. One person audibly said, "Wow." Musk didn't respond right away, but the look on his face said everything. He didn't expect her to push back. Not like this. Whoopi Goldberg tried to break the tension. "Let's all take a moment here," she said, her tone half motherly, half crisis manager. "We invited both of you here to speak, not to shut each other down." But it was already out of her hands. Crockett looked at the co-hosts, then turned to the audience. "If accountability makes you uncomfortable, that's on you, not me." And then, without waiting for a cue, she stepped away from the table and began walking off stage. The camera struggled to keep up. You could see the control room scrambling, cutting between the stunned faces of the hosts, Musk's unchanging glare, and Crockett's powerful stride as she exited. It was TV gold, but also a cultural lightning rod. Online, the moment exploded. Clips of Musk telling her to leave flooded timelines. Supporters of Crockett praised her courage, calling it the moment she refused to be silenced. Critics accused her of being disrespectful, turning a tech conversation into identity politics. And Musk fans rushed to his defense, saying he had every right to demand respect on air. But one thing was certain, no one was ignoring it. Within an hour, the hashtag Crockett versus Musk was trending worldwide. Late-night hosts cracked jokes. News anchors debated who won the exchange. Political pundits framed it as a microcosm of everything from tech elitism to racial tension in American discourse. Meanwhile, ABC was silent. Internally, producers were torn. Some were panicking about the fallout. Others were secretly thrilled, knowing full well that controversial moments like this translated into viral views and sky-high ratings. But for the viewers at home, it wasn't about numbers. It was about what that moment represented. A black woman asked a powerful white billionaire why his future didn't include people like her, and was told to leave. Whether you saw it as disrespect or righteous resistance, it was unforgettable. The moment that set it all off wasn't planned. It wasn't scripted. It was raw, real, and impossible to ignore. And as Crockett disappeared behind the curtain and Musk sat stone-faced at the table, the audience knew one thing: this wasn't over. The studio erupted, not with applause, but with confusion, outrage, and stunned disbelief. The moment Elon Musk told Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett to leave the set of The View, the carefully choreographed world of daytime television came completely undone. Half the audience gasped, loud and sharp, echoing across the walls of the studio like a siren. Others clapped, not necessarily in support of Musk, but in pure reaction to the sheer audacity of what they had just witnessed. A few people even booed, loud enough for the microphones to pick up before the producers scrambled to mute background noise. One person in the third row literally stood up, hand over mouth, whispering, "Is this real?" to their friend beside them. The co-hosts were no better. Joy Behar, always quick with a quip, was caught by the camera mouthing something that appeared to be, "What the hell is happening?" Her expression, a mixture of disbelief and dismay, quickly went viral. Sunny Hostin's jaw was clenched as she nervously glanced toward the producers. Whoopi Goldberg just shook her head slowly, clearly trying to remain composed as everything around her spiraled. It was pandemonium in real time. Backstage, chaos erupted as producers and stagehands scrambled to go to commercial. One assistant nearly tripped over a cable trying to signal the floor director. Meanwhile, a camera, likely still on autopilot, caught one final, cinematic shot of Jasmine Crockett. She stood up. Her body language was calm, deliberate, not flustered, not shaken. Her silence was louder than any clapback. She stared Musk down, fierce, unfazed, and unmoved. Then, without saying a word, she gave a slight nod, a gesture that said, "You don't get the last word," and turned, walking off the set with the dignity of someone who knew she'd just made history. That image, her walking off, back straight, chin up, would become an instant symbol across the internet. And the internet did what the internet does best. It exploded. Within seconds, hashtag Crockett vs. Musk was trending on X, formerly Twitter. It didn't matter that the show hadn't even returned from commercial yet. Clips were already circulating, captured by people watching live on their phones or recorded straight from TV. Another hashtag followed quickly. Hashtag The View Meltdown. Tweets came flooding in. Jasmine Crockett just bodied Elon Musk on live TV. I need that on a t-shirt. Elon really told a sitting congresswoman to leave a show SHE was co-hosting? What in the billionaire ego? That nod she gave before walking off. Legendary. This is why we need more women like Crockett on national television. She spoke truth and got punished for it. But not everyone saw her as the hero. Musk supporters rallied just as quickly, with a wave of counterposts. She ambushed Elon with identity politics. That wasn't a conversation, it was a setup. Musk kept his cool. She couldn't handle disagreement and stormed off. The View just turned into the viewpoint of the radical left. As the show returned from commercial break, the energy was completely off. The co-host struggled to regain footing. Whoopi offered a brief, diplomatic statement. Sometimes conversations get passionate. We're all here to exchange views, even when they clash. It was a valiant attempt to steer the ship, but the damage was done. This wasn't just another spicy TV segment. It was a moment, a flashpoint, a cultural Rorschach test. People weren't just reacting to what happened. They were projecting onto it. To some, Crockett was a truth-teller, a fearless black woman confronting power head-on, refusing to be silenced or gaslit by one of the richest men in the world. To others, she was a disruptor, turning an important conversation about technology into a political ambush. But no matter which side you were on, you had to admit the drama was unmatched. News outlets scrambled to keep up. Headlines started rolling out by the hour. Elon Musk clashes with Jasmine Crockett in live TV showdown. Congresswoman walks off set after Musk tells her to leave. Chaos ensues. The View's most explosive moment yet. Musk versus Crockett goes viral by midday. Crockett had posted a brief response on X. When a woman asks the hard questions, suddenly it's drama. I'm good with that, because silence has never made progress. It was retweeted nearly 200,000 times in the first hour. Elon Musk, for his part, didn't post anything immediately. But later that evening, he tweeted a cryptic quote, "You know you've won the argument when the other side walks out." That post divided people even further. Some praised him for staying calm. Others blasted him for completely missing the point, or pretending not to. Even celebrities got in on it. Actress Viola Davis reposted the clip of Crockett standing up with the caption, "Power, grace, unbothered." Raised fist medium dark skin tone. Meanwhile, late-night comedians had a field day. One joked, Elon Musk told a congresswoman to leave The View, and for once, Joy Behar didn't have to do it herself. The studio audience roared with laughter, but underneath all the jokes and memes was something deeper, a conversation about who controls the narrative, who gets to speak, and who gets to be heard. In that brief, volatile moment, daytime TV had become a battleground for power, privilege, and public accountability. And as clips continued to flood TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, some with dramatic music, others with expert commentary, one thing became crystal clear. This wasn't going away. Whether you thought Crockett was out of line or standing her ground, whether you believed Musk was calm or condescending, you were talking about it, debating it, sharing it. And in 2025, that's how you know a moment mattered. When The View returned from its unexpected and chaotic commercial break, the air in the studio felt different. No one said a word about it, but everyone could feel it. The tension that wrapped around the set like a fog that wouldn't lift. Elon Musk was still seated, still composed, still wearing that signature unreadable expression. But to many viewers watching at home, he seemed too calm, almost like a man who believed he'd won something or didn't care if he had. The seat once occupied by Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett was noticeably, painfully empty. The camera stayed wide, a subtle but telling move from the director. No close-ups, no dramatic zooms. Just a wide lens trying to pretend things were normal when they absolutely weren't. Whoopi Goldberg was the first to speak. She forced a small laugh, clearly trying to push the show forward. "Well, let's just say that wasn't the conversation we expected," she said, her voice warm but tight, her eyes scanning the table. There was a pause. No one laughed. Musk gave a nonchalant shrug. "I came here to talk about ideas," he said flatly, "not to deal with personal attacks disguised as questions." That line hung in the air like smoke. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't emotional. But the implication was loud and clear. Crockett had crossed a line. In his mind, she had derailed the conversation, turned it from a dialogue into a performance. And he wasn't about to let that slide. Joy Behar, still visibly unsettled, tilted her head and asked cautiously, "Do you really think what she asked was a personal attack?" She brought up hiring practices, representation. Those are real concerns. Musk's reply was measured but cutting. Those are valid topics when asked in good faith. But when it feels like an ambush wrapped in moral outrage, it's no longer a conversation. It's a setup. Again, that eerie calmness. The audience sat on their hands. No clapping. No cheering. Just watching. Sunny Hostin, clearly trying to smooth things over, added, "I think it's important to acknowledge that representation in tech is a serious issue. And it's natural that someone like Congresswoman Crockett would want to address that." Musk gave a tight nod. "Of course. But we need solutions, not grandstanding." To many watching at home, that was the final straw. The internet, already ablaze with clips from the earlier exchange, erupted again. Users accused Musk of gaslighting, of brushing off legitimate concerns as drama, simply because they made him uncomfortable. Hashtags like hashtag hard questions aren't attacks, and hashtag calm doesn't mean right began trending alongside the original firestorm. Influencers, commentators, and regular viewers jumped in. You can't invite a black woman into the room, ask her to speak, and then punish her for not softening her words. Elon Musk trying to paint himself as the victim because someone asked him about diversity is peak billionaire delusion. Still, some viewers took Musk's side. She came at him with an attitude. He kept his cool. That's leadership. You don't invite Elon Musk and then treat him like he's on trial. She hijacked the show. As the co-hosts worked to salvage the rest of the segment, they tried shifting gears back to the original topics. Artificial intelligence, ethics in tech, social media responsibility. But it didn't matter. No one was listening. Viewers had mentally checked out the moment Crockett walked off. The remainder of the interview was background noise, polite questions, canned answers, awkward silences. The energy never recovered. And in the studio, you could tell, the vibe had changed. Whoopi gave one final attempt to bring closure. At the end of the day, conversations like this are tough, but they're necessary. We may not always agree on the approach, but the goal is understanding. Musk didn't comment. He offered a small nod, adjusted his jacket, and glanced briefly at Crockett's empty seat, but said nothing more. The segment ended. As soon as the show cut to its final commercial, Musk was whisked off stage by handlers. Cameras followed him to the backstage area, but he kept his head down, avoiding press questions. Backstage, sources say the energy was no better. According to leaks later posted on social media, ABC producers were in full crisis mode. Some were furious. Others were thrilled at the viral explosion the show was generating. Internally, they debated whether to release a statement, but there was no immediate consensus. Meanwhile, Crockett had already left the building. Her staff confirmed that she would not be returning for the remainder of the show. But she wasn't hiding. She took to X just an hour later with a post that read, "I asked the questions the audience wanted answered. I don't apologize for expecting accountability from anyone." It was a mic drop moment that further split public opinion. But even beyond the viral clips and trending hashtags, the day's events had already entered talk show history. Media outlets across the political spectrum weighed in. Conservative pundits accused The View of setting Musk up for failure. Progressive voices celebrated Crockett as a modern-day truth-teller. Neutral commentators focused on the broader implications. What does it say when difficult questions are seen as attacks? And who gets to decide what's civil in a conversation about power? Later that night, The View's official social media account posted a carefully worded statement. Today's episode sparked passionate conversation and unexpected moments. We stand by our mission to host diverse voices and difficult dialogue, even when it's uncomfortable. Uncomfortable was putting it mildly. In the court of public opinion, the jury was still out. But one thing was undeniable. What happened after the break wasn't damage control. It was damage exposure. The calm may have returned to the studio, but the storm was just beginning, and no amount of commercial breaks could fix that. Just 1 hour after walking off the set of The View, in front of millions of stunned viewers, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett reappeared, not on another TV screen, but on her Instagram Live. No big production, no PR team, just her phone, and the raw aftermath of a moment that had already gone viral across the internet. The screen lit up with her face, poised, centered, and calm. "Let's talk," she began, her voice steady but firm. Within minutes, tens of thousands had tuned in. Comments flooded the chat. "We love you, Jasmine. Speak your truth. Don't let them silence you." Others simply posted fire emojis and clapping hands. She didn't respond to the noise. She wasn't there for hype. She was there for clarity. And when she spoke, it was with the same boldness that had made her stand out on the set just hours earlier. When powerful men are challenged by black women who speak truth, they react with fear, not facts. The moment she said it, the internet exploded again. That single quote was clipped, reposted, and turned into a meme within minutes. Some called it iconic. Others called it divisive. But everyone agreed it was powerful. Crockett didn't attack Elon Musk personally. She didn't call names. She didn't yell or rant. She didn't even mention The View by name. What she did was more precise, more deliberate. She drew attention to a pattern, one that black women in politics, media, and leadership have pointed to for years. Too often, she continued, when we ask hard questions, questions rooted in justice, in equity, in truth, we're dismissed as angry, disruptive, uncivil. But what's really disruptive is ignoring injustice and pretending that accountability is hostility. The comment section was on fire. Viewers were typing as fast as they could. Hearts floated up the side of the screen like confetti. And just like that, Crockett had shifted the narrative. While mainstream media outlets scrambled to analyze whether Elon Musk had overreacted or whether the show had spiraled out of control, Crockett went straight to the people, unfiltered, uncut, and unapologetic. She didn't stay on long, just under 10 minutes, but that was all it took. Before the stream ended, she made one final point. This isn't about a billionaire or a TV show. This is about who gets to ask questions, who gets to challenge power, and who gets labeled a problem for refusing to stay silent. Then she smiled, gave a slight nod, and signed off with, "Y'all know I'm not afraid. I never have been, and I never will be." Click. The screen went black, but the world was still watching. Within hours, her quotes were everywhere, reposted by celebrities, shared by fellow politicians, and analyzed in think pieces and morning talk shows. Her words were trending on Twitter, X, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts, often paired with footage from The View and the now infamous moment Elon Musk told her to leave. And this time, the support wasn't just digital. A wave of support Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley posted. "Proud of it, Jasmine for U.S. Black women should never be punished for telling the truth. Ever." Actress and activist Kerry Washington shared Crockett's live stream with the caption, "Grace, power, Truth. Don't ever let them tell you your voice is too much. Even Senator Elizabeth Warren weighed in with a subtle but pointed message. We need leaders who speak truth to power, not those who silence it. But it wasn't just politicians and celebrities rallying behind Crockett. Grassroots organizations, including the NAACP, Black Lives Matter, and She the People, released statements praising her poise and conviction. One post from the Black Women's Congressional Alliance went viral itself. We've seen this story before, but we also know how it ends. Black women don't back down. We build movements. The other side speaks, of course. The backlash came too. Conservative pundits accused Crockett of grandstanding and creating a spectacle. Some claimed she went on The View with a political agenda to target Musk. One right-wing host said she used identity politics as a shield because she couldn't win the argument. But Crockett never responded to those attacks. She didn't need to. Her silence toward the critics only made her stand stronger in the eyes of her supporters. Instead of clapping back, she let her original message do the work. And for many, especially Black women and allies, it was a masterclass in leadership under pressure. A moment bigger than TV by the next morning. Her Instagram Live had been reposted across multiple platforms and had reached millions of viewers. Media outlets labeled her response everything from measured and masterful to a PR genius move. But for Crockett, it was never about image. It was about authenticity. It was about truth-telling in real time, not through press releases or handlers, but by looking into a camera and speaking directly to the people. And perhaps most importantly, it was about reclaiming control of the story. While Elon Musk had returned to business as usual, with no public statements made since the show, Crockett had stepped back into the spotlight not as a victim, not as someone silenced, but as someone amplified by the very moment that tried to shut her down. The takeaway: she didn't let the moment define her. She defined the moment. And in doing so, she sparked a new national conversation, not just about tech or politics or The View, but about who gets to speak when the cameras are rolling and who gets punished for daring to challenge power. As the sun began to set, and hashtags like #Crockett versus Musk continued to dominate the internet, the world waited to hear from the man at the center of it all. For most of the day, Elon Musk had stayed silent. Not a word, no statement, no interview, just a storm swirling around him while clips of his showdown with Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett played on every platform. But then, just after 8 p.m., he tweeted, "Simple, sharp, carefully worded. Debate is welcome. Political theater is not. We must stop turning important discussions into circus acts." Just 13 words, but they landed like a hammer. The tweet was immediately met with mixed reactions. Within minutes, it racked up hundreds of thousands of likes, retweets, and quote tweets. Supporters rallied behind him, praising his composure and accusing Crockett of turning a serious conversation into a political ambush. But the critics? They were louder. Critics call it a deflection. Political analysts, journalists, and everyday viewers flooded Musk's replies with disbelief. One journalist from the Washington Post fired back. "So asking tough questions about your hiring practices and AI ethics is political theater?" A viral post from a tech ethics professor read, "Let's be clear. Elon Musk entered a space known for bold conversations and couldn't take the heat. This tweet is damage control, not leadership." Even late-night hosts jumped in. Trevor Noah joked, "Elon Musk calling The View a circus is like showing up to a boxing match and complaining you got punched." People weren't buying the circus narrative. To them, Musk had walked onto a platform known for conflict, commentary, and courageous voices, and when one of those voices didn't bend, he pushed back in a way that looked personal, not professional. One particularly viral reply summed it up bluntly. "This isn't about political theater. This is about a billionaire being questioned by a Black woman and not liking it." Supporters fired back, but it wasn't all criticism. Musk's loyal fans, tech influencers, and conservative media figures quickly came to his defense. They claimed that Crockett ambushed the interview and turned it into a political hit job. Popular podcast host Joe Rogan reposted the tweet with the caption, "You don't invite Elon Musk on and then try to trap him. Let the man speak." Fox News ran a full segment titled, Elon Musk versus the Woke Machine, Why Free Speech is Under Attack. And conservative influencer Candace Owens added, this is why more billionaires and innovators don't do mainstream interviews. They're not interested in discussion. They want submission. To them, Musk was the adult in the room. Calm, cool, collected. He didn't yell. He didn't storm out. He made his point and moved on. In their eyes, Crockett was the one escalating, turning a tech conversation into a political flashpoint. But did Musk miss the moment? Still, many questioned whether Musk truly understood the gravity of what had happened. This wasn't just another Twitter fight. This was a cultural moment, one where the world saw power dynamics play out in real time, live on television. A white billionaire telling a black congresswoman to leave the stage wasn't just awkward. To millions of viewers, it was symbolic. One editorial from The Atlantic put it like this. In that moment, Musk had a choice. He could have responded with facts, with openness, with respect. Instead, he silenced dissent, and now tries to frame it as theater. Even some of Musk's usual defenders were caught off guard. A former Tesla board member anonymously told Business Insider, Elon is brilliant, but he doesn't always realize that tone and timing matter. This wasn't just a disagreement. It was a flashpoint, and the tweet didn't help. Meanwhile, Crockett gains momentum while Musk tried to reframe the narrative. Jasmine Crockett was gaining followers by the second. Her Instagram Live had been watched by millions. Major podcasts were requesting interviews. Campaign donations reportedly spiked overnight, with her team saying it was the largest 24-hour fundraising surge they'd ever seen. And she still hadn't responded directly to Musk's tweet. That silence, strategic, calculated, powerful. Instead, Crockett reposted a quote from activist Audre Lorde. Your silence will not protect you. No caption, just the words. And that post alone went viral. The bigger conversation emerges now. The focus shifted beyond just the clash between two individuals. America was talking about race, power, gender, and what happens when tough questions make powerful people uncomfortable. Political roundtables debated the implications. High school and college classrooms analyzed the confrontation. Hashtags like hashtag let her speak, hashtag tech and truth, and hashtag power and privilege emerged across TikTok and X. And one thing became clear. This wasn't just about the view anymore. This was about how society reacts when truth meets influence, and who gets to shape the story that follows. Musk doubles down 2 hours after his first tweet. Musk returned with another post. I'm all for open dialogue, but when it becomes a performance, it loses value. Let's have meaningful conversations, not viral stunts. Again, the tweet ignited a firestorm. Supporters clapped. Critics clapped back. A clip began circulating of Crockett's original question. Who gets to be part of the future? Many said that wasn't theater. That was accountability. One user wrote, funny how asking about racial equity is called a viral stunt when a black woman says it, but visionary leadership when a white man does. The drama continues by the end of the night. Major news outlets were running full recaps. YouTube was filled with reaction videos, and influencers on both sides were dissecting the debate frame by frame. Musk may have wanted to shift the conversation, but in doing so, he poured fuel on a fire that wasn't going out anytime soon. The question now, would he address Crockett directly, or would he continue tweeting from a distance, hoping the storm would pass? Either way, the battle of narratives was far from over. The sun hadn't even risen yet, but by 6 a.m., producers at ABC were already scrambling. Phones ringing, emails flying, executives pacing, because the previous day's episode of The View, the one featuring the now infamous clash between Elon Musk and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, had just shattered every expectation. And when the overnight ratings came in, jaws dropped. A record-breaking episode, the numbers were historic. The View hadn't seen this kind of audience surge in years. According to Nielsen data, the episode became the most-watched segment of the year, pulling in over 6 million live viewers, and that didn't even include digital replays. By the end of the day, clips of the Musk-Crockett confrontation had exploded across the internet. 38 million views on TikTok, 15 million on YouTube, trending #1 on X, formerly Twitter. For 14 straight hours, dozens of reaction videos from influencers, political commentators, and even international media people couldn't get enough. Some watched for the drama. Others watched for the politics. And millions watched to witness a cultural moment unfold right before their eyes. ABC in emergency mode, but behind the scenes, ABC was in crisis mode. Sources leaked that executives held an emergency closed-door meeting just hours after the episode aired. The agenda? Figure out what had gone wrong or right. According to a senior staffer, who spoke anonymously, there was no script for what happened. No one saw it coming. We were expecting tension, sure, but not a live walk-off and a global backlash. There were heated debates inside the room. Should Elon Musk have been challenged harder? Or was he ambushed? Should producers have stepped in sooner? Should Jasmine Crockett be invited back or quietly removed from the guest list for good? One executive reportedly asked, "Was this spontaneous? Or did we just set the stage for a viral meltdown?" No one had a clear answer, but one thing they all agreed on: the fallout was bigger than anything they'd seen in years. Viewers picked sides meanwhile. The public was locked in a fiery debate. The comment sections under every clip turned into digital battlegrounds. Half the viewers praised Crockett for her boldness, saying she spoke truth to power and forced Musk to confront issues he'd rather avoid. The other half said Musk had been set up, that he'd come to discuss innovation and ideas, not defend himself against what they called gotcha political questions. On YouTube, one of the top comments read, "This wasn't a conversation. It was a takedown attempt. Elon didn't walk out. He held his ground." But the reply right underneath it went viral for a reason. He didn't hold his ground. He shut down the only black woman in the room when things got uncomfortable. That's not strength, that's fragility. Celebrities, politicians, and pundits joined and the drama didn't stay on social media. Celebrities weighed in. Ava DuVernay, the acclaimed director, tweeted, "What happened on The View is a mirror. Look closely." Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez showed support for Crockett, saying, "Women, especially black women, asking tough questions isn't political theater. It's democracy." Meanwhile, Tucker Carlson called the episode a leftist ambush of a genius businessman, sparking even more media coverage and partisan takes. Suddenly, it wasn't just a TV moment. It was a national conversation about race, power, speech, and how we treat public figures who don't look or act like us. Internal divides at ABC internally. ABC was facing conflicting pressures. On one hand, the ratings were undeniable. The controversy had drawn a massive audience, and the network's advertisers were thrilled. One insider revealed, "It was chaos, but it was also gold. Everyone's talking about us. The brand is everywhere." But on the other hand, some longtime producers were uncomfortable. "This isn't Real Housewives," one veteran team member reportedly said. "We're supposed to inform the public, not throw gasoline on live TV." There were concerns about safety, ethics, and whether The View had veered too far into sensationalism. Rumors began circulating that some staff members had threatened to resign if this kind of circus continued. Others were pushing for more high-profile guests, hoping lightning would strike twice. The show's hosts react while the execs scrambled. The hosts of The View also began responding in their own ways. Joy Behar, who was visibly stunned during the live moment, addressed the fallout during the next episode. "Let's be honest, none of us saw that coming. But that's the risk when you invite strong people with strong views to the table." Whoopi Goldberg, always the steady hand, tried to calm the waters. "Look, this show's been around a long time. We've had fights before. We've had walkouts. What matters is, are we still willing to talk the next day?" But not everyone on the panel felt the same. Sunny Hostin was reportedly frustrated that Crockett hadn't been supported more. Backstage tension, insiders said, was at an all-time high. What happens next? ABC hasn't released an official statement yet, but sources suggest they're now reviewing their guest booking process and evaluating new safety protocols for live interviews. There's talk of inviting both Musk and Crockett back for a follow-up, separately or together, but no decisions have been made. Meanwhile, The View social media team is working overtime, leaning into the moment with teaser clips, polls, and discussion threads. Their latest promo, the moment that shook America, and the questions that still remain. Tune in Monday. The bottom line, the fallout is real. The conversation is massive. And the drama, far from over. Whether you believe Elon Musk was unfairly attacked or Jasmine Crockett was silenced for speaking truth, one thing is certain. This wasn't just another talk show episode. It was a flashpoint, a culture clash, a power struggle televised and dissected for the entire world to see. And now, with millions watching and waiting, everyone's asking, what happens next? This wasn't just another spicy TV moment. This wasn't about ego, headlines, or who won the argument. What happened on that stage between Elon Musk, the billionaire tech titan, and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, the bold voice from Texas, was something much deeper. It was a collision of power and politics, race and respect, tech and truth, all unfolding in real time, under the blinding lights of daytime television. And in that moment, America couldn't look away. More than just a meltdown, let's be real. People love a good viral moment. We've seen shouting matches, unexpected walk-offs, and awkward interviews before. But this felt different. Why? Because it meant something. It represented something. On one side, you had Elon Musk, one of the most powerful men on the planet, a billionaire who controls rockets, electric cars, and the very platform where people argue about him. He's a symbol of the New World Order, wealth, tech, influence, and disruption. On the other side, you had Jasmine Crockett, a freshman congresswoman unafraid to challenge that power, a black woman in a white-dominated world, a fighter who didn't blink when she stared Musk in the face and asked the questions nobody else dared to. That dynamic was electric, and it forced the world to pay attention. A flashpoint for race and power to some, Crockett came across as aggressive. To others, she was assertive, confident, and real. Exactly the kind of voice America needs more of. And that right there is the issue. Why is it that when a black woman challenges power, she's labeled as too much? Why is speaking boldly seen as disruptive, while silence is seen as polite? These aren't new questions. But on that day, The View became the national stage, where they played out in full color. This wasn't just about Elon versus Jasmine. It was about what happens when someone from a system of privilege is asked to answer to someone outside of it. And it made a lot of people uncomfortable. Was Elon Musk out of line? Musk's defenders say he was ambushed, that he came in good faith and was met with hostility. But others argue, isn't that what leaders are supposed to handle? Isn't that what real dialogue looks like? Facing tough questions from people who don't see the world the same way you do. Musk didn't just dismiss Crockett's concerns. He told her to leave. That's the part people won't forget. It wasn't a disagreement over data. It wasn't a policy debate. It was a moment where a powerful man told a woman, live on air, to get off the stage because he didn't like her tone. Some say it was assertiveness. Others say it was arrogance. But either way, it was a moment that pulled the curtain back on who gets to speak, who gets to question, and who gets shut down. Jasmine Crockett's strength, let's give credit where it's due. Jasmine Crockett didn't raise her voice. She didn't throw insults. She didn't crumble under pressure. She stood her ground. And when Musk challenged her to leave, she didn't argue. She got up, with dignity, with confidence, and walked out of that studio with the world watching. That kind of composure isn't weakness. It's power. And in that silence, in that one quiet nod, Crockett said more than any mic drop moment ever could. A national conversation unleashed. What followed was more than just social media noise. It was a conversation that spilled into schools, offices, churches, and barbershops. People asked hard questions. Do billionaires think they're above criticism? Why are black women so often interrupted or dismissed in public spaces? Can real accountability exist in a world obsessed with optics and branding? And perhaps the biggest question of all, what kind of world are we building? And who gets to be part of building it? The View's role in the chaos. Some criticized The View for staging the whole thing. Others said it was a risk worth taking, bringing opposing voices to the table and letting sparks fly. But whether you believe it was manufactured drama or an authentic clash, there's no denying the impact. This wasn't a train wreck. It was a mirror, and America didn't always like what it saw. Where do we go from here? So what happens next? Does Musk learn from the experience? Or does he double down, continuing to call tough conversations political theater? Does Crockett become an even bigger voice in politics, empowered by the moment? Or does the media try to silence her with labels and distractions? Does The View back away from bold discussions? Or lean in and give the platform to even more voices that challenge the status quo? Only time will tell. But one thing is for sure, this wasn't the end of a conversation. It was just the beginning. Final word, a moment etched in memory in a time when headlines come and go, when viral moments vanish in 24 hours. This one stuck. People felt it. People argued about it. People remembered it. And maybe that's what real change looks like. Not polished speeches or safe debates, but raw, real confrontations that make us think. Two strong voices met. Neither one backed down. And in that moment, the world was forced to ask itself, whose voice matters?